English language learner, you know what? This this combination of foreign language learning and Reggio Emilia approach is not something very common in the world. So the Reggio Emilia approach is mainly used as with mother tongue, and therefore this is quite innovative. So if you're decided to practice and to put into practice the Reggio Emilia approach in your English lessons, you're going to be innovating, right? And this is very, very important for you to know. But let me tell you a little bit about Reggio Emilia. And let me tell you that I had the pleasure to be there, the Centro Internazionale Loris Malaguzzi, where the training takes part. So you can have training on the Reggio Emilia approach in different parts of the world. You only have to check that it is recognized by the Centro Internazionale Loris Malaguzzi. But if you have the opportunity to go there, it's much better because you can see the approach being taught there in Reggio Emilia. And at the same time, they will take you to different schools where the approach is put it into practice. So it's very important to be there. So there you can see me there. And the one city, many children, it's because the city is called children friendly. And that is really important because the mayor of the city and all the, let's say, the authorities in the city are really proud of this, implementing this approach. And in the different schools, state schools and private schools at the same time, not all of them, but most of them. And so this is the heart, let's say, of the city, right? This is very important. And in the gardens, you can see there's representations, let's say, of children's drawings that they have come to be part of the decorations. And in the background, you can see what is the main building of the Centro Internazionale Loris Malaguzzi. And there you can see some teachers coming out. This is the main hall where you have lunch in the background. You can see the tables there, and you have the opportunity to exchange with other colleagues. And again, the main building of the Centro Internazionale, where you have the expositions, all the exhibitions, and you have the, it's a sort of, the room is a sort of theater, you know, where you get the training and such and such. So it's very important that you know where all this comes from. So what we do in English language teaching is we take the main principles, let's say, to our classes, you know. We are inspired and we put into practice some of the principles, the main, you will see later, because as they say, the Reggio Emilia approach as such is only practiced in Reggio Emilia. The other people around the world, what they do is apply in their contexts what they find suitable and what they find it's possible for them to do. So our webinar today is, we are going to try to answer some questions, which are, how can we make, the learning of English more meaningful, right? And effective for very young learners. That's why I wanted to include the Reggio Emilia approach here, which is the impact of an emergent curriculums in the acquisition of a second language in the pandemic times, right? We are in. Don't tell me about it. And how can we adapt our teaching strategies to very young learners to the remote teaching context? Because as you know, there are many issues regarding this last point. I have just read yesterday an article talking about the damages children are having in their sight because of the time they spend working and playing with screens. We already knew that before this pandemic times, but I remember parents being quite, persistent in controlling the time their children were exposed to screens and such. But then the pandemic appeared, and we started having this thing of schooling through platforms. And so you can see the little ones spending 2 or 3 hours a day, receiving their lessons through the screen. And this is why I want to start talking about this issue, because we need to take care of those children's eyesight, and we need to continue teaching, and they need to continue learning. So my question now is, how can we do that, right? How can we plan our lessons so they don't spend so much time through the screen, working through the screen, and they can continue learning. We can continue having evidence of their work and see the progress they are making, even though we are just working through remotely. I don't know if all the states in Brazil are working remotely, or you have already went back to the classroom. You can put that in the chat box if you want, so I can see what is happening. Here in Uruguay, we went back to school little by little. The last ones to go back to school were the urban state schools. And now they go almost every day, not every day yet. And the year is about to finish. So we have this situation. And mainly with the little ones, what happens is that parents have already solved, let's say, the daycare problem. And so they are not taking the kids back to class once the schools reopened, So we are having this, teachers are still planning for the face-to-face lessons and the remote lessons for those children who have not gone back to school, sorry. So it's a problem, right? It's really a problem. Okay, here you can see on this slide here, this beautiful clay work. This is in the main hall of the Loris Malaguzzi building. The main hall, you have an enormous platform where you find this display, and this models, in this case, this boy, that is sort of, I don't know, this is a tricycle, bicycle, how do you call this? And this was done by a group of 5-year-olds. Imagine 5-year-olds modeling pictures, modeling structures of in this is not on the table, it's straight, and so it's quite difficult, I can tell you. And you can see the movement of their body. In the background, you can see others, human figures. So it's really, really nice, the work they do with clay, and they use it a lot, right? But in this case, that this is another tool. That's why I put it for you to have in your minds when you plan your lessons, modeling, right? But in the case of the teaching, and in the case of the Reggio Emilia approach, I want to bear in mind 6 main principles we are going to address today. The Reggio Emilia approach is based on an emergent curriculum. And so what does this mean? An emergent curriculum is something that is not already written before you start teaching. It's something that comes up in the classroom, and you decide what you want to teach the learners according to what came up in the lesson, in your everyday interaction with the children, because you have noticed they need this or that, because you have become aware of certain background knowledge they don't have, or maybe there are some steps, further than you thought, so you need to readapt things. So it's an emergent curriculum. You might have an idea of what you want to do with your learners. You want your learners to learn the parts of the body. You want your learners to learn the rooms of the house. You want the learners to learn how to say and mention and describe that. That's your idea. But it will come up in the class, how you're going to do it and through what you're going to do it, what tools, what materials, what resources. And you have to keep sort of an open mind to be ready to get the topic and pull the thread. So you start, learning together with the children and discovering their needs of language as you work. The Reggio Emilia approach is based on in-depth projects. So our research projects that you develop with the children. That's why I was telling you, you have to be very aware of what comes up in the classroom. So you, from a question or a comment they make, you say, okay, I can start pulling from this idea and building up a research project that will end up in something interesting for the children, but at the same time, it will allow me to teach some language I want them to understand and get and use. Another thing is, that's why I brought the clay figures here, is the representational development. How the children are going to represent, right, what they have learned through modeling, through drawings, through writing, maybe if they can write, the lower grades in primary or upper grades in primary. If they can write, they can start writing things. How are they going to represent the process of learning? Okay. And then it comes what we call pedagogical documentation. That is how you, the teacher, are going to document the learning. One thing is what they are going to produce as a document of their development. Another thing is what you as a teacher are going to use as a document of the process they've been through. Something that you can use, right, when you're not teaching, you can use, or maybe you can use it with the children, but you can look at that process, reflect, find which are the things you want the learners to improve, which are the things they still need to go over, which are the individually what happened with each of the learners, So the pedagogical documentation is a document of the work you have done with the children and the process they've been through. So it's very important that you have the other step before, the representation of their development, so you can get that as one more tool or one more document for your pedagogical documentation. We're going to see that later. Collaboration among teachers, this is really important. We don't work alone. We never work alone. And for good or for bad, we work with others. And so it's always better to have some other person to talk to and reflect with, and maybe invite them to your class, be part of your lesson. Even if it is remote teaching, you can ask a colleague to pop in the class and observe your teaching or observe the learners and see how the dynamic works, and then have some feedback from that person. So we are always working collaboratively, right? And then taking into account the learning environment. In the Reggio Emilia philosophy, they call the learning environment the third teacher. That's because you have two teachers, physical teachers, and then the environment is the third teacher. So the environment teaches, always teaches to the children. And in the case of remote teaching, the environment is the platform you use, the resources you use to teach online, but also the context, their home, their room they are given to work with. If the family respects this moment when the children are in their remote lessons, or if you have, it happens, the parents, in the background, talking, even having an argument, and everything comes out through the mic into your class. So that is a learning environment, right? That we need to take, really take a lot of care right there. So let's go one by one. The emergent curriculum, right? It comes up because something, what they call in Reggio Emilia a provocation, happens. It might come up naturally from the children, or maybe you bring something to the class in order to generate the provocation. So the questions come out and you start building up the path they will go through to discover what they want to discover, to learn, to answer the questions they brought, but at the same time, learn the language you want them to learn. So the emergent curriculum, right, the classroom curriculum stems from the particular interest of the children. But it's not that you wait at, in a class like this until they come up with something to talk about. No. It's something that you bring to the class, something to generate a comment. You bring a topic, you bring a question, you bring a story, you bring something new. In remote teaching that you are at home, you can bring whatever, right? You can bring a pen and start asking questions about this, and maybe a kid makes you a comment about this, and from there you become aware of the comment and start pulling the thread. So it comes from you as well, but it needs to catch the children's interest. If it doesn't, it's not going to be a good project or a good learning, let's say, context for the children, right? The curriculum topics are derived from talking with the children, as well as from things that emerge from the daily life. So you know that when you get together in class, in that circle that we generally do with the children, or even when you get to, with the children through remote teaching, once they are all there, they start, teacher, that my grandma came to our home and she's going to stay some days with us. And you know what? Blah, 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 blah. From there, you can start pulling, okay? And say, okay, your grandma, right? Where does she live? And why is she at home? And blah, blah, blah. And then other children can start asking questions about their grandma. And is she your mother's mom or your father's mom? And tell me about your family tree. And you start building, right? And from there, you can make after that a drawing with a family tree and start pulling and pulling and pulling. So you need to have a very, very open mind. And these children are going to be delighted to tell you about their family tree. Not because you say, okay, hello, one day we're going to start writing and making a family tree. No, it's because it came up, it came up from them. And so as this little girl tells you about her grandma, another one's going to say, you know what? My grandpa lives, blah, 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 blah. They come with questions. Is it going to be in English? No, it's going to be in Portuguese in your case. But what we do is start changing some keywords into English. When they say in Portuguese, that my grandma is coming home, you can say, okay, now repeat after me, grandma is coming home, and then you insist with other children, grandma, home, coming, some keywords from there that you're going to repeat one after the other because they're all going to tell you about their grandparents. And so you insist on grandpa, grandma, blah, 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 and they're going to get it, So don't desperate. They're going to learn the language, but when they talk spontaneously, then many times they go to the mother tongue, and that is natural and it's okay, right? The important thing is that you give them the keywords so they start including English in their speech until they say it all in English, because many times they know how to say it in English, they're just lazy. So invite them, say, okay, you know how to say this in English, right? My grandma, okay, say after me, repeat, is coming home, blah, blah, blah. Okay, now the second one who is going to talk about their grandma, you say, okay, you know already how to say, right, grandma in English, so say it, come on, okay? And then we move on. Teachers compare notes and observations in team planning lessons. So when we work on this emergent work, in this emergent curriculum, what we do is all the time, every week or every 2 weeks, get together with our colleagues and exchange notes and observations. So all the teachers who work with the same group of learners, we share the same topic. And we can see the same topic from different perspectives, because of the physical education teacher, because with the art teacher, science teacher. So all of them are going to say, okay, from my perspective, what I can add to this project is that I can ask the children to do this and that and the other thing. Okay, great. And so the arts teacher will say, okay, so I can use this information and ask them a question about how they would do this and that. Okay, so it's very important. And we're going to see this a bit later when we talk about collaboration. So what happens with remote teaching is the same way we can, if we are having asynchronous teaching only, that is, students are not getting into the platforms and we are not having this kind of live sessions, then we can send them a question or ask them to a question like this for them to answer. We can send them a short video of us making some comments and asking them some questions. We can send them a video, right? A very short video telling a story, and from the story making questions for them to identify with a character or a situation and make comments from there. They can answer to our questions through maybe email, through the platform. You know, if you have maybe some live sessions and then some asynchronous sessions because you're having this hybrid teaching, we can decide, okay, I make you the question through the video and you answer this when we meet on Friday, for example, and then you discuss it in a live session. So don't ask the children to connect at a certain time so much, right? Maybe you can use asynchronous with the little ones more often and leave these meetings with the children once or twice a week. So they don't have to sit still and connect, and you need an adult connecting the children. You need a whole bunch of people there for them, okay, being quiet and silent. And the kid is not going to resist more than 30 minutes, you know, being really attentive. So be careful how you use this tool of the live sessions. Now, when we talk about pulling the thread and creating a research project, I'm not going to repeat what I have already discussed in the previous webinar, but because it's going over projects all again. But in-depth project is that you're actually asking the learners questions. When they come up with the answer, you make another question so they can continue researching, going for information. Now, who is going to provide the tools for them to do the research? Of course, you. Who is going to, when they come back with the answers, give them the right language for them to use it? Again, keywords. You know, I found out that my grandfather came from Europe. Lovely. Now, how do you say that in English? Right? And you say it again, grandparent, Europe, right? Keywords again. So they start building that knowledge in their brains. Even though they might not use it, one thing is the language for understanding, another thing is a language for use. So we should, at these ages, work a lot on language for understanding. The best examples of language users are you. So use your language as much as possible. If you need to translate to the children mother tongue, you say it in English, translate and come back to English. Not long chunks of language, short chunks of language, but that you want them to get the understand that in English. So you say, okay, your grandfather came from Europe, right? And then you say it in Portuguese. I'm not going to say it. And then you go back to English and you say it again. And the children are going to repeat it, okay? So again and again. So they're going to do it. And the following day, they explain that again to you and you again. So they're going to get it. But in that project is because they are not going to finish once they have the family tree and that's it, because you want them to describe the members of the family. Maybe those members of the family already passed away, so they will have to go home and ask for pictures. And maybe the grandmother has to look for pictures and bring that knowledge to the classroom. Maybe you can invite the grandmother to the classroom, even though she speaks in Portuguese. You get key information, important information, and then you put it in English. So develop this in-depth projects that will give the children this sense of, belonging, sense of knowledge. They are going to be analyzing their roots, their family members. It's really important. So it's a thorough study of concept and ideas. Project can last from 1 week or two to the whole year. And teachers alongside with children to ensure the understanding, right? So it's important that you check the children do understand what they are doing, do understand why they are doing this, because they want to know about their families. And if you notice they don't want to know about their family, okay, move to another aspect of what they brought, right? So, your grandma is going to stay home with you. Lovely. So instead of asking them about the grandma, you can ask them about, and where is she going to sleep? In my mother's bedroom, my bedroom, in some, okay, tell me, how many bedrooms do you have? And then you go to house and furniture and, daily routines, and you can continue building right from there. So check and be alert and be able to read what they tell you. Maybe they tell you, I don't want to talk about my family. They're not going to say like this, but you can see the motivation goes down. So change the topic, okay? Lovely. So then we move on to representational development. This is another picture drawn by a child that you can find when you walk around the different places in the Loris Malaguzzi Center. And that is what I was telling you. They represent in a way with drawings, with writing, with modeling, with pictures. You can take pictures. They can take pictures. What they have been learning. So in the Reggio Emilia approach, right, they need to represent ideas and concepts in multiple forms. So as I was telling you, through print, through drama, through music, they can dance, they can do some artwork. Find what you believe is better for your learners at that moment, right? When you find, okay, how do you think we can do this? Or how could, if they have chosen drama, for example, because they want to have a short role play of the grandma coming home and then the mother and the father. Okay, and so you have a small drama activity. You can take pictures, you can film them. Okay, they are going to write the script or not. It's going to be spontaneous. So many things for you to register and to take a lot of pictures, but not pictures with the students like this with a project. No. What actually becomes a document is a picture of the student involved in the activity, right? When you see the learner is actually involved in the activity, that is a document of learning. This is nothing, right? Nothing is happening. Is that you told the kid, okay, do this, do that, right? Variety of presentations ensure that all children have the chance to understand and connect with the concept. So when you teach a concept, for example, family members, it's important that you give the children a variety of opportunities to represent the concept. So a role play activity and artwork, and music or song and puppetry and you name it. But give them different ways for them to understand the concept of family and family tree, for example, right? I always keep the same example so you can keep a track on what I am doing. I'm going to check the time because, wow, I need to rush. Okay, as usual. Now, going to pedagogical documentation, and I don't want to talk too much about this. This is the topic of my dissertation, so I've been studying this topic for a while. If you can see the drawing that this child is doing, what do you think it is? What do you think this drawing is? Come on.
A centipede.
Yes, really good. What else can it be?
It's a representation of coronavirus.
Right, but maybe, I don't know. But the thing is that we have it in our minds all the time. So whatever we see like this, maybe it's a spaceship, you know, but when we see this thing, it's coronavirus, doesn't it? So I love this centipede because it's a different, are not invaded with the coronavirus crisis we're going through. Okay, so what is pedagogical documentation? A systematic act of collecting, interpreting, and reflecting on concrete traces of learning. Concrete traces of learning. So you keep track of your learner's progress, taking pictures, keeping maybe a picture of the drawing, because you're not going to keep the drawing because it's a child's work. But you take a picture, right? You record comments the children make, dialogues they have. You sit there and maybe make some notes on the comments they make. So it's very important to see how the ideas, how they work in their minds. So you have that information, and then you can reflect on that. You can think and look at the progress and look at what they have done and be able to, in a way, find out what are their needs actually, right? The purpose is to center our attention on children's learning, focus on how and what children learn. And the documents highlight how the children planned, carried out, and completed their work. So many times what the child chooses to do, because you can give them a white sheet of paper, you can give them colors or crayons or whatever, and then they make a decision. I'm going to do this. It's not that you told them, okay, make a drawing of this coronavirus, whatever. No, they're going to draw something that represents maybe a pandemic or what is happening nowadays in the world or what is in their minds all the time, and they come up with something like this. So it's very important that after that, you take some time to observe that and see what happens, right? And use this information to interpret and reflect on the learning. What happens with remote teaching? What I've seen is, if you're working in this hybrid thing, they can do generate the documents and then bring them to class when they go back to school. They can generate the documents and they take a picture and email the pictures to you, email a video explaining what they have done. If they have prepared something big, for example, I don't know, a castle with a box, a cardboard box, they can make a video of that and explain the rooms of the house. They can walk around their house with a mobile phone explaining what they have, whatever. They can describe their bedroom, the same thing, using a mobile phone if they have a possibility. So try to find different ways that children can generate a document of their work. You're not going to be paying attention to the bedroom. You're going to be paying attention to what the child is saying about the bedroom, right? And how the child is using the language that he has or she has learned. So if you have already taught the furniture of the bedroom, how much of that language comes up when the child describes the bedroom, right? So it's very important for you to be careful and really pay attention to what you want to pay attention to, what you need to pay attention to, and not be distracted because he said, I don't know, the lamp, and then you are caught because there is some picture that could call your attention, okay? So it's important for you to bear in mind different ways you can ask the children to make this documentation, right? Collaboration, please. I was talking with some minutes before. I was talking with Fernanda about generating a community of teachers. We need to generate this idea of community. Moreover, when we are working in our homes, you know, because you feel so lonely, you feel absolutely isolated, and you are not. Right? But it's important that you generate this with your colleagues, this idea of being together. So you can generate groups and of teachers, and at the same time, teach the learners how to work collaboratively. And so even though you work remotely, you can ask them to get together remotely and work together with simple tasks, right? It's just for them to feel they can meet in some time after class. Because sometimes they have this idea that they meet during the class, but then after class, they are all alone at home, and they don't need to be all alone, right? They don't need to. They can play with their friends through the screen, big screen better, and do it and play together. And then they share that, or they're sharing at the same time for 15 minutes, for half an hour, and that's it, right? But it's important for them to have this idea. And the same with your teachers. It's important that you get in touch with your colleagues and generate this meeting once a week. Lovely, if you can do it. If you can do it every day, better. If not, at least every 2 weeks, try to get together and share what you have been doing. Each child's voice is heard in order to promote a balance between sense of belonging to the group and sense of self. That is why it's important to create these communities of children and of teachers. So everybody's voice is heard. You have something to say and about what is happening, what you're learning, discuss the processes, and the same with the children. They can discuss if they're going to prepare, a model of what they are learning about, or maybe better drawing, or why not generate this idea with our bodies and I don't know. Allow the children to work together as well as you with your colleagues. Teamwork. Teachers take time to work collaboratively with other teachers and also spend time to reflect on what they have learned about themselves and their teaching, because through this year, you have been developing new strategies, absolutely new. Many of you have never taught through a screen, have never taught children and very young children through a screen. And maybe you have developed some tools that are really successful and others are not. And that is a lot of learning. Maybe you would like to share with your colleagues and tell them what is happening in your class. Tell them that maybe the students were really eager to participate in the remote sessions, live sessions, but now they are not. What might have happened? It happened all around the world that students are sick and tired of Zoom lessons. But anyway, it's good for you to have these colleagues there and share strategies and share knowledge. You are building up a lot of knowledge in remote teaching, you know that? Think about it. This amazing pedagogist, that is Francesco Tonucci, says the space of true play is not one of adults. Play is a pleasure entailing exploration and adventure and requiring a variety of settings, spontaneously chosen places, far from adult gaze. I would like to add to this, far from adult gaze, but before the children went there, the adults have checked it was safe. But now we're going to talk about the environment, the learning environment. And when we are working with remote teaching, as I was telling you, the learning environment is this. The learning environment is, if you're having a live session with your learners, your background, what happens around in your house and what happens in their house. And the learning environment is their home. So we need to guide and help the parents understand the value of the learning environment. And the learning environment is not only when they are with you, but from the moment they wake up in the morning till the moment they go back to sleep at night, they spend the whole day in a learning environment. So it's really important you help them discover, reshape, and create, areas of learning and discovery. Okay, when they have these amazing spaces. Look at this. First thing in this picture, the parents agreed to allow the child play with the sofas, the cushions, with a torch maybe for the lights. And the child created this, maybe with the help of an adult, I don't care, right? It's a child's mind working. And that is a very strong and powerful learning environment. So it's very important that we take into consideration this. If we are in class, in a physical class, please organize your classroom to allow learners to make decisions. Those classrooms where you get into the classroom and you see a beautiful bulletin board, everything created by the teacher with a welcome class, blah, 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 and then another picture from a magazine. It's lovely. I don't like it, but it's lovely, neat, but it's not a learning resource. A learning resource would have been receiving the children with an empty bulletin board and telling them, okay, what do you think we can put here at the beginning of the year? And maybe they can say, okay, why don't we put a welcome sign, and why don't we do this and that? And then you create it with the children the very first day of class. So that becomes, you know, the sense of ownership. They own that, they have this idea of building up the classroom with you and creating their learning space. So it's really important. And you have a look at this picture here. You can see that it's the ABC, the famous A for apple, and B for balloon, maybe, I don't know, and C for carrot. But everything is done by the children. Of course, with the adults' guidance, of course. But it's the children creating the pictures, the children generating the images, okay? If you want to use pictures, it's better to use real pictures, a real apple, right? Real carrot, and not a drawing of an apple or a drawing of a carrot. Just a piece of advice. Why? I'm going to tell you why. Using the real carrot, you're telling the child, this is a carrot. Using a drawing of a carrot created by somebody else is telling you, this is the perception of a carrot according to somebody else's point of view that you have to adopt. So it's better to show the child the real picture, the real carrots, and then let them draw, or use the real picture if you want to. Because if they are too young, they will not be able to make drawings as clear as this. So maybe what they do are just some lines that it's difficult to identify the carrot. So maybe it's better to use the actual picture of a carrot. Now, to document children's progress uses many different methods, such as video, photographs, tape recordings, portfolios, work with the learning community, teachers, parents, and grandparents to help compare information. So when you have the environment ready, when you have the children producing those beautiful documents of the learning, you can share it with teachers, with parents, with grandparents, with anybody who is responsible of the child or takes care of the child, and have this information coming and going and exchanging data with those people around you. And this is a phrase from Hattie that I really love. And it says, I see learning through the eyes of my students. I help students to become their own teachers. So when we come to you with a question and you help them find the answer to the question, you don't provide the answer, they are building deep learning. And so that is what we want them to get. Deep learning, as well as the knowledge of the language, of course, but the understanding and using the new language will come with deep learning, discovering the language. And so it's going to be magical for them, and they're going to learn it, right? Some examples here. I generally use my granddaughters because I love them, but also because I don't need to ask any other parents permission for this, just my son and my daughter. So it's easier for me to use my granddaughters for these things. I don't need a written consent and such. So in the case of this little lady, she loves using my measuring tape. And I don't know why, everything measures 38 or 68. I don't know, 58. She loves this ending. In Spanish, we say 38. And so I asked her, tell me how long it is. Mide 38. I don't know. Okay, lovely, lovely. But from here, if she were my student, I would say, okay, with this comment and this eagerness, she has to measure everything. I would say, okay, this lady is ready to start learning about size. So from here, I can say, okay, let's start measuring things that are long and measuring things that are short. We can start measuring things that are big and measuring things that are small. And so we can start understanding big and small, tall and short. At this age, she already has these concepts in Spanish. So it's just the idea of telling her the concepts or the names of the concepts in English. But still, maybe she needs some reinforcement. So as I teach the words in English, I reinforce the concept of size, right? I can start teaching numbers because of this thing of the 38 and 68 that she always tells me. Now I can start teaching other numbers and using the measuring tape to start teaching her numbers, a sequence of numbers, quantifying, right? And we can discuss as well how to measure things. What can we use to measure things apart from the measuring tape? Maybe we can measure with blocks. Okay, this is 3 blocks long, and this other is 2 blocks, and this other is 1 block. We can use fingers like this. Do you use your hands to measure like this? We can use, of course, the measuring tape, right? So lots of information. And what can we measure? Can we measure the table as she's doing, a toy, a car, myself? And then I go to body, right? My height and the class, and making maybe the shape of their body on the floor, right? Measuring and making a table with the different heights of each member of the class. Imagine, right? So from this that this little girl brought to my class, in this case is my home, but it might be her class, I can bring all these concepts and ask her questions about this, right? How do you know it's 38? Okay. And so we started talking about 3 and 8 and continue working with that, okay? So I made this other table here, possible topics to investigate and learn from, about myself, my height, and then my body. Why do I grow? How do I grow? You can invite a doctor, you can invite other people to talk to them about this. You can even move from growing, you can go to diet, you can go to exercise, physical education. Imagine all the things you can do. You can teach them numbers, right? So your concept of number, how many, right? A few, many, counting versus reciting, because parents come to you and say, she knows how to count up to 20. And the little thing makes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, one thing is to recite. Another thing is to know how to count. So if I show you this, right, or number 3 with writing 3, do you know how many elements do you have to bring to me? Okay, that is counting, okay? Numbers and numerals, one-to-one correspondence, as I was telling you, the symbol of 3 and the elements to connect. And what can I count? What things are countable? What things can I count, right? Oh, another thing I can teach from here, from this little one with this is a measuring tape. Long and short, big and small, huge, medium, average, and little. One more step, right? Longer than, shorter, and use it naturally. Look, you know what? This table is bigger than the other. And they're going to use it. Don't start thinking about comparative, superlatives. No, don't. They get it. Longer than, shorter than. You know, you're taller than him. Oh, he's shorter than you. And they're going to say it. Lovely. Okay, don't worry. Then my other granddaughter, we were in the garden And she saw this beautiful leaf with this drop of water. And so she asked, is in Spanish, right? ¿Es agua? ¿La puedo agarrar? So is it water? Can I catch it? Can I, grasp it? And so she started trying. And from there, I started asking questions. Can you, touch it? Can you do this? And so she started asking questions. Why is it that I cannot do that? Why does it break into two, she said, or divide when I try to, catch it? And then she asked, why is the leaf dry when there is water on it? So lots of questions in the little mind, right? She's 3 years old. And so from this topic, am I rushing already? I always rush. Okay. From this topic, I say, okay, what can we develop a project, a research project on what? For example, if you want to stand on water, and we can start discussing about fresh water and salty water. Okay, we live near the beach, so we can go there and try to find out the difference between fresh and salty water. Another good thing is the fresh water, the color and the smell, and compare it to salty water. Then another question that generally comes to their minds is, where does water come from? The water I have, in the toilet, in the kitchen, where does it come from? And so we can develop all that knowledge there. And my body and the need of fresh water is another topic that you can relate to diet again, and physical education, and things that actually needs and they need to know about themselves. On the other hand, we have the issue of leaves and plants, right? What are leaves for? Why is it that plants have leaves, right? The parts of a plant. Why is water important for plants? Is it water important for everybody, right? Why is it that most leaves are green? Another nice question. You can ask these questions to the children, right? Why is it that most leaves are green? And see what they answer. And then reach to the conclusion that we need to find out, look for more information, and they ask them, how do you think we can get more information about this? And they will bring you some answers. So trust them, okay? Really trust them, because they are really, really knowledgeable, right? So from provocations, possible provocations to begin a project in that lockdown context, let's say you are not having face-to-face sessions. So one thing we need to try to think is, how can I collect the learners' questions? Because I can bring a topic or bring a provocation, for example, this leaf with the water, and they can start asking themselves questions. How can I collect those questions? So one thing is through interaction, asynchronous or asynchronous. Synchronous is this. Asynchronous is that maybe the parents write out the questions and send them to me, or again, the video or an audio on WhatsApp, right? Where they can say, okay, I want to know blah, 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 and they send the questions to you. Be creative, right? Try to find out how to get the information from the learners. Another thing is the learner's context, right? And again, it's the learner's home. And so we need to take advantage of that they are at home, and think of all the things we can get for them to develop their language. The rooms of the house, the furniture, the toys, their pets. Do you have a garden? Some of them have a garden. Okay, we can use the garden, right? And all the information that comes from the garden. Food and recipes, the kitchen, books they have at home, books they want to share, stories. Imagine lots of information. And the learner's family, right? So the family members, the physical appearance of each member of a family, the different family structures, and many, many other things. Do they have a car? don't they? Why? What are the means of transport that they use? When do they use the means of transport? Do they have certain days to use certain cars? So imagine all the things you can do with those little ones, right? Even in remote teaching situation. But please try to plan your lessons and your projects and your research without asking the child to be connected in live sessions every day. Okay, it's not necessary. It's not necessary. If you plan your project thoroughly, and maybe you share your planning or a version of your planning with the parents, you know, they can follow that with you through the week. Maybe you can prepare a schedule for the week and ask them to do certain things through the week. And then you meet the children twice a week for 30 minutes. And then you might meet maybe with the parents another 30 minutes once a week or every 2 weeks. Please take care of those little ones, right? Invite the learners to explore familiar objects and processes at home, plan different ways for them to document the learning process. So how can they document what they are, you know, researching, like this little one observing the drops of water, right? How can you document this? In this case, it was a picture, a great tool, right? A video, a drawing, again, audio. Those are documents for you to keep track of their learning. Generate instances to share experiences and build community, a community of learners and a community of teachers, and a learning and teaching community involving parents, grandparents, and everybody who is in touch with that little one, okay? Look at, I love this picture. And this says, early childhood is a period of momentous significance for all people growing up in our culture. By the time this period is over, children will have formed conceptions of themselves as social beings, as thinkers and as language users, and will have reached certain important decisions about their own abilities and their worth. Imagine, it's a precious moment in our lives, right? Look at that picture. So please create this community, feel, you know, that you have others around you to help you with this difficult moment. Be aware that you are creating tools, developing new strategies and approaches to teaching. We are making a big spot. This is a big spot in the methodology path of English language teaching. So be aware of that, right? And thank you very, very much. Look. Okay, thank you. Thank you very much for being here. I hope you liked it.
All right, Ceci, thank you very much for sharing with us this afternoon. I do have a few questions by some teachers that posted on the chat, and I'm gonna read them to you so you can answer them, okay? The first question was asked by Virginia, and she asked, is it okay to use mother tongue in the process of L2 learning? If so, how much of it is it okay to use?
Okay, yes, as I was saying, it's okay to use mother tongue. Of course it is okay. And moreover, if they are very, very little. The thing is, always come back to English, right? Always try to come back to English. So if as I was telling you, if they say, I don't know, that they have to go to the toilet, for example, it's very common. And you say, okay, say it in English. Okay, wait, they are in a hurry, okay? So they say it in English, they cannot, okay, go to the toilet. And when they come back, you say, okay, how do you say this in English? I want to go, repeat, to the toilet. Lovely. Okay, so you're not going to be doing that all the time. And many times children, they already know how to say things in English, but they are, as I was telling you, they are quite lazy. So it's important that you take that into consideration, right? And evaluate. You will see, you will sense when it is necessary to use mother tongue or allow them, because they're eager to tell you something and they will go, I mean, as the same that happens with us. When we are too enthusiastic or too motivated about something, you know, we jump to our mother tongue. And so then we have to say, okay, it's in English. Okay, say it in English, right? Okay.
All right, thank you. And the second question is from Carla. When we only have 40-minute lessons per week with the students, how can we make sure we get all this information necessary for these specific projects, like the one with the water that you said? Okay. Should we go and attend other classes and watch their behaviors and see their ideas?
Interesting. This is really interesting. It might, of course, is if you can attend other classes and see how they behave and see how they, because don't forget that children are not divided in subjects, you know. Children are only one thing, only one being. So whatever you have taught them in English class, they're going to use it in physical education class. And that is the magic of teaching, right? Because, and that means they are actually learned something, you know, because they're capable of making the transfer to or applying the knowledge in a different context. But the thing is that if you only have 40 minutes per week with them in face-to-face classes, is what I was telling you, use the asynchronous teaching. Prepare this schedule for the family and say, okay, we meet 40 minutes a week, but then the rest of the week, I suggest doing this, that, and the other thing. Short activities that keep them motivated and keep them recycling the language you have taught them in those 40 minutes. So they go over and over and continue consolidating that knowledge. That would be my piece of advice in this case.
Now, that's a great suggestion. I also want to contribute because I see my kids doing classes every day. And when they're having a project like this, what the teacher does, they create board games that are virtual. And every week they refer to it so they can keep track of what their learning is. And I think it's a great idea on how to remind them of all the work they have accomplished and what their target is. Because again, they contribute a lot to their own paths. And I think it's really important that we do that as well.
Yes, sure. And moreover, with a second language, that you need them to go over the language again and again and use it in different contexts again and again, you know?
So Ceci, there are no other questions here. If anybody wants to post a question to us, make sure you get in touch with your local representative and he will send us the question. I will get back with Cecilia, get an answer for you, and then get back to you, okay? This recording will be available as of 2 days from now, I think. And thank you all very much for having attended this session. Ceci, thank you very much for these ideas. And thank you very much for opening up our eyes for different possibilities in pandemic contexts. Okay?
Yes, sure. And I'm sorry to tell you, but I believe this context is going to last one more year. So we are, you know, we can still continue developing more strategies and sharing a lot of knowledge we are building, creating, constructing. So thank you very much for being there. And please do contact me if you have any questions, you want to check some knowledge, whatever, let me know, okay? Thank you very much.
All right, everyone, have a good night. Thank you.
Bye-bye.